So, good morning or good night, depending on where you are in the world. And welcome to a new interview of the Shield Dude on a Couch. And today I'm joined by Gus Rios. So he plays in a few bands, but we're concentrating on a new band called Cold Slither. And if you heard that name before, you know that it was a band that debuted on G.I. Joe on an episode in 1985. So first, Gus plays vocals and guitar, and in the band he's Sartan. If you watch G.I. Joe, you remember that Sartan was the dude with the long hair and the black thing on the eyes, and he could like change and camouflage, and the famous dreadnoughts. So, Gus, how are you, man?
Cool, man. Happy to be here. Happy to be involved in this.
Yeah, I have to give a backdrop to people who I don't know who knows G.I. Joe, but I think everyone who grew up in the 80s watched G.I. Joe religiously. I remember it was G.I. Joe, G.I. Joe, Transformers, He-Man, Thundercats. But to me, between G.I. Joe and Transformers, I never liked Transformers. It was always G.I. Joe.
Yeah, I love Trans.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. Like, I like the toys better. The G.I. Joe toys were the best. I mean, just, I still have,
Oh my God! Wow,
yeah. I have a lot of G.I. Joe toys. I still collect.
Man, if I went back to the past, I would say to myself, please, because I lost them, they broke them. Well, back in the day, what the fuck was I supposed to know that these things were going to cost more money?
Oh no, these were all purchased as an adult. I had to, so like in 2000 and I don't know whatever year it was when like eBay became a thing, and I discovered that people were selling all these old toys. I bought all that shit.
Yeah,
so I have, like.
Oh my God! Yeah, that's I can see your team Cobra. Yeah, Cobra.
I mean, I loved it all, but the Cobra toys were always the best.
The evil guys always had the best.
They have the cooler stuff.
Yeah, it's funny when I listen because I watch old He-Man and I remember like Skeletor and Cobra Commander kind of had like the same type of voice.
Yeah,
like a very pitchy voice. So growing up, which was your favorite character from the G.I. Joe series?
For the G.I. Joe team, it was Duke. And for Cobra, I loved Storm Shadow, the ninja.
Yeah.
And then and I love the Dreadnoughts. And the Dreadnoughts were kind of the whole group. I just love them so much because they were just kind of they were like on Cobra's team, but only because Cobra paid them. So they were just mercenaries, and they were just punk rock.
Yeah, like bounty hunters. They were like bounty hunters. Like they
Totally.
Do you remember the Cobras? You remember they had the two corporate twins that were evil?
Of course, man. The Tomax and Zaymot. I mean, yeah. I know all the shit. Like, I'm a super deep G.I. Joe guy.
No, I'm sure you know more than me because you're very deep into it. So I'm very curious how this project came together because I also know you played with Gruesome and with Harvey, which I've had on the show before. So obviously Gruesome put out an album recently. So how much how did this came about? Because I was reading you're now with Rating Phoenix Music. Who contacted the toy company? How this got put together? Because that's very interesting.
So this goes back a couple of decades when I was in a band called Malevolent Creation. We were signed to Nuclear Blast, and Gerardo Martinez was the label manager at the time for Nuclear Blast. And when I first met him in person, he was wearing a G.I. Joe shirt. So we immediately hey man, I love G.I. Joe, so we became friends. like outside of work because we both love GI Joe. And about 10 years ago, he made a contact at Hasbro. You know, again, he's a GI Joe guy, and he runs a record company. So it was totally Gerardo that had the idea. I want to bring Cold Slither to life. You know, he's a record company guy. He's like, this shit would sell or whatever, and I love it. But at the time, 10 years ago, or so, I don't know exactly when, but it was a while ago. GI Joe kind of went dead. Like Hasbro wasn't pushing it. There was no toys coming out. And from Hasbro's perspective, if there's no toy to push, you know, why would they get involved with something like this? Like, you know, they're still, at the end of the day, they're a toy company that wants to sell toys. Fast forward to now, you know, to go to your question, like the new GI Joes. Hold on, I'll show you. Check this out.
Show me the new GI.
You know, this is the new GI Joes.
Oh, oh my God! What's
Pretty
that
badass.
character?
You know, so they brought GI Joe back in the 6-inch size, called the Classified series, and they've been incredibly successful, thankfully. So, you know, about a year ago now, Gerardo contacted me, and he said sends me a text, dude, you need to call me right now. And so I call him back, and he just says to me, hey, I just got off the phone with Hasbro. And I knew immediately what that meant. And I go, come on, dude. He goes, Cold Slither is happening. And, you know, you have to figure out, like, what does this fake band sound like? Like, what does a real Cold Slither record sound like? And it had to come from me. You know, so it was this big weight on my shoulder of like, what do I make this band sound like? So, you know, and that's a lot of factors went into what made that record what it is, you know, and I considered everything, like what the song Cold Slither sounds like, what Zartan sounds like when he talks, what the Dreadnoks represent. Like, you know, the real depth of the Dreadnoks, like what are they about? So I didn't want to just write, you know, I guess like stupid cartoon toy level music and lyrics. Like I wanted it to be cool. Like I don't want to do anything stupid. Plus I knew I was going to have to sing these songs live, so I didn't want to be on stage going, Cobra is cool and GI Joe sucks. Like I wanted it to have some depth to it. So, you know, I mean, that was all of these things went in, you know, were things that I thought about and considered as I'm writing these songs.
Yeah, plus I think with the success of that, for the name of the band slipped my tongue, but you know, the Copa Metaglocalypse, that it's like a
Death
cartoon.
Clock.
Death Clock, yes, the name escaped me. There's like a audience for this, even though this started originally as a cartoon. And that episode, the story was that for people who haven't seen that the Dreadnoks did this Cold Slither band to like hypnotize the youth with Cobra's like message, which has been ripped off, that episode, by a lot of like modern cartoons.
Well, I mean, if you remember the 80s, you know, there was that whole like satanic messages and like Judas Priest songs and Ozzy Osbourne songs. So it was very much like an 80s thing to put subliminal messages in music and play the record backwards and all that shit, which is interesting to me that G.I. Joe, that the writers of the cartoon fully went to such a controversial subject for a kid's episode. Like, if clearly parents weren't paying attention to the cartoons their kids are watching, because that's some heavy shit, man.
Yeah, no, it is. And also back in the 80s, I remember when I was being little, I was told that the Smurfs were satanic.
You know, yeah, you know, if you look at a lot of what GI Joe is today, like I watched a lot of the cartoons writing this album, and I've always loved the cartoons. Like I bought the DVDs when they came out. Like I always loved the cartoons, but I haven't watched them in a while. I mean, there's like fist fights. You know, there's like threats of killing people. Like you won't live to see the. You know what I mean? Like there's full on threats of murder. So like, you know, it's a lot more brutal than people would remember it to be. And for this is a kids cartoon.
Maybe parents just watched the last part where they gave like the more you know like part where
The PSAs.
yeah, the PSAs.
Now
But
you know.
I remember when I watched when they did the GI Joe movie, the cartoon one, not those crappy live actions. That if that Hasbro thing took a while, I blame Channing Tatum. That crappy live action movie. God, that movie was
You
bad.
know, that's a whole other subject. If
Oh,
I feel like if I wrote a GI Joe movie, it would be awesome.
Yeah, no, that live action movie was so terrible. Like, but the cartoon one was awesome. But I remember being a kid, I was pissed at that movie because that's the movie where they like kill Cobra Commander. Like Cobra Commander like gets like turned into like a
Turn
snake,
into a snake.
and they were pushing more Serpentor, and I'm like, no, I'm like Cobra Commander all the way.
I mean, it's, you know, famously like in the Transformers movie, they killed all the G1 Transformers, and it's like, you know, and they interview the guys at Hasbro now, and they're like, man, we just were trying to clear out the old toys and bring in new toys. And they completely didn't realize that these characters meant a lot to us kids. Like we grew up with these guys. Like, you know, I looked at Duke like a father figure, you know what I mean? Like Spirit, you know, I was like, you know, I follow his wisdom. Like, you know, these characters meant a lot to me as a kid. So to watch Duke die, almost die.
I think he died. Yeah.
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 Well, remember, you got a snake through the heart. Like, I mean, that's traumatic to a kid. So, you know, I think obviously what's cool now is Hasbro's very aware of what these characters mean to our generation, you know, which is cool to see.
Yeah, like no, it's cool, and yeah, you should totally write a movie because I see that I saw the first action movie, and when they had that line that the Cobra Commander dude when like you shall call me Commander, I'm like, oh God.
No, I mean, I think the problem with doing the movies is there's too many GI Joe characters and there's too many Cobra characters. I think they should do like a Netflix series where there's like half an hour episodes, and that way you can bring in different characters in different episodes, just like the cartoon did. And then you get a little bit of what you want. And then you just dress them up like they did in the fucking cartoon. That's what everybody wants to see. Channing Tatum didn't look a goddamn thing like Duke. I didn't believe it. It was not Duke. So they just need to like literally turn the cartoons into live action, and that would be successful.
Yeah, that makes more sense, but yeah, maybe it can happen. Just don't do what Netflix did to He-Man. They did like a continuation and ruined He-Man.
You know, it's just it's you know, and then there's that. Just leave it alone. Just leave it alone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think they're doing, you know, I personally, I think they're doing great with it. The new series of toys, I think, are excellent. The first ones that came out, they tried to make them different, and everybody complained. And now they're just 6-inch versions of the little toy with just a lot more detail. So I love them.
No, yeah, those toys were always good. So let's talk about some of the tracks on this album. My favorite track, which is not a single, is Master of Disguise.
Oh wow. Okay. That's like the Metallica song.
The Master, that's a cool song. Plus, obviously, he was the master. Sartan was the master of disguise. So that's a cool track. But you have let's talk about the singles that you have out. I know you have 3 songs that are out. You have Cold Slither, you have Wonder Machine, and you have Knock 'em Dead. So let's talk about first about Knock 'em Dead.
Knock 'em Dread.
Oh, Knock 'em Dread.
As in Dreadnoughts.
Yeah.
I think Gerardo had mentioned to me, we were having some conversations like, what is this going to sound like? What should it sound like? And, in the cartoon, they were more supposed to be like a hair metal band,
Like a
obviously with the get up and all the stuff. And I'm not a hair metal guy. I love hair metal, but I'm not going to write hair metal. It's going to be dishonest if I try to make it sound like Poison or Rat or something like that. So I was just like, so it's not going to sound like that. I don't want it to sound too heavy. You don't want it to sound like Death or Slayer or something like that, because my overall goal with this record was I want heavy metal fans to dig it. But I wanted it to also be accessible enough that if you're just a G.I. Joe fan, that you maybe don't listen to metal, it's still accessible enough that you could just listen to it and be like, hey, these are cool songs. So, I wanted to make the choruses really just clear and catchy, real easy to digest. The song structures are very easy. It's just kind of like verse, chorus, middle section, whatever. I just wanted it to make it pop sensible, but the riffs and stuff are still like heavy. And so Knock 'em Dread, in my head, I was just kind of hearing 80s Twisted Sister, Wasp, Motorhead, like that kind of a vibe, that 80s kind of thing. And, that's where all just, and all those songs just start off with just a good riff. Like it just all starts with a good guitar riff. And then you build the song around the guitar riff.
Plus you also, the thing with this album is like, there's like different styles of metal to it. But yeah, I felt like it was accessible, but not sounding like glam metal. So it had an edge to it, but I could tell, like listening to it, like, yeah, this is something that maybe if you're not like super metalhead, you can get into as well, because there's some accessibility to it. And the intro, I want to ask, who did Cobra Commander's voice?
Someone that they had on staff, or not on staff, but someone that they selected. I wrote the dialogue for it, and the guy that mixed the record, Matt, kind of did the music or the underneath part of it. Gerardo gave him the idea. He's like, man, I want it to kind of sound like the intro from Shout at the Devil, just kind of that droney, eerie, creepy thing. And yeah, I mean, and then, when I heard it, I was like, okay, that's what you want it to be. And obviously, when we play live, we'll play that as the intro to the live show.
Yeah, talking about the live show, your debut will be in, I think, July 24th. I have the flyer here,
Yeah.
so about that a little bit. So can people? This will be the first time that you guys are playing live, correct? In front of people.
That is correct.
At least with this band, obviously.
That'll be the first time Cold Slither at all in the world plays live. It's a first.
Yeah, I love the flyer. It's pretty cool. So can
I don't have muscles like that though. That the muscles are a little false advertising.
Well, come on. It was the 80s. When women now says that they have impossible standards, I'm like, woman, I grew up looking at He-Man.
I know. Come on, give me a break.
I can go to the gym all I want, and I'm not looking like He-Man. So
well, that's what I said. This is Cold Slither, but we're the late 40s. We're all in our late 40s. That's what Cold Slither looks like. That's what Cold Slither looked like in 1985. We're what Cold Slither looks like 40 years later.
But will you have like semi costumes when you guys are gonna play live?
Oh no, I just had this out. Here's the pants. Here's the wig. Yeah, it's gonna be, because I was like, if I was just a fan at that show, I want the cartoon to come to life. Like, that's what I want to see, and anything short of that would fail, in my opinion. So, like, the hair color of the wig, I had to go to like a bunch of different stores to find the right color. The color of the pants, the V-cut shirt, the boots, the wristbands, like, all of that stuff has to be right, or it's just not. You're not going to believe you're seeing Cold Slither. So, yeah, all of those. I'm going to do the corpse paint, shave the beard off, like I'm going to become Zartan, and everybody else is too. Like Matt's growing a beard right now. So, and Matt Harvey's never had a beard in his life. So, like,
when I talk to him, yeah, he has no beard. That's right. So
he's growing it right now.
Aren't you glad that this band didn't feature Destro?
Right, that would be. I mean, it would be. You'd have to get into like Sleep Token territory with like a mask or something.
Yeah, the Destro with the mask and stuff.
Plus, dude, there's nothing rock and roll about Destro. Like, I was just talking about this in the other interview I did. Like, the Dreadnoks were already like a punk band. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? It's like 4 dudes. They were already a band before they were a band. So for them to turn into a heavy metal band, it just made the most sense. It's perfect.
Yeah. Because the 2 cousins, they work in real estate. There's nothing rock metal about them.
No, there's nobody, and you couldn't have used like the Troopers, because the Troopers had no personality. The Vipers were just kind of like stormtroopers. They were just like pointless, faceless characters. The Dreadnoks were just the perfect choice for this. Like, whoever wrote that episode was just brilliant. Like, perfect writing.
Probably a metal fan. But yeah, it's obviously in the 80s in the cartoon, they make it glam and stuff because that's what was playing at the time. And it was also a kids show, sort of, they couldn't be having them looking like all scary looking. So let's look at the artwork for the records, which is a pretty cool artwork, very Cobra-like. So tell us who did first of all, what you were going for with the artwork and who did the artwork.
Well, this is all Gerardo handled all of this, so this all came out of his mind. But Marcelo Vasco, who does a lot of the stuff for Slayer and Kerry King, did this, which I just found out recently. And when I saw this, I love it. I just think it's, with the Marshall stacks and the Cobra temple in the back, it's what it's like what, and this is where Gerardo, being a real fan, comes into play, because in his mind, he's like, what do I want this to look like? Like, this wasn't just something that, I think, again, people are so quick to think, because Hasbro is a big giant corporation and they're just mindless, soulless people that just want to sell toys. At least the music part of this, and even to the people that design the toys, like, there's care. And this album cover, when I look at it, this came from the mind of a genuine G.I. Joe fan. Like, this is what you think a Cold Slither album cover should look like. I can't wait to have my own physical copy of this. It's amazing. Yeah,
no, it really looks good, the details and everything. And I know there's going to be some different variants. I read there's even a Hasbro variant.
Yeah, there's a Hasbro version that's like blue and gray, which I think looks so awesome.
Yeah. So this is all by Raining Phoenix Music. So we'll post the link for people who want to pre-order the record. So yeah, no, there's even I like the Ballad of Buster.
It's funny. Like, that was the way this whole thing went down is I thought of all the song titles first. and I had to submit those to Hasbro for approval because obviously, like, I mean, they own Cold Slither is their intellectual property. They have to okay everything. So, you know, like Knock 'em Dread, Thunder Machine, the Ballad of Buzzer, which I just thought came off the tongue really easily. You know, I came up with, I think, 9 and sent them in, and they sent back 3 of their own. So, you know, and I had to just basically work. The lyrics came from the title, and then the music came from what the lyrics and the title kind of made me feel, if that makes any sense, which is kind of different than any other record I've made, where the, you know, the kind of the title of the song dictates so much of what the song ends up being.
So once you recorded everything, did Hasbro ask to listen to the album first?
Absolutely. They had to, every song, you know, I didn't even, that whole record I would record, you know, I would go to my studio on like Monday and have an idea, you know, and because I can do everything myself, I just end up kind of fleshing it out over like 5 or 6 hours. And then I finish and I have a piece of music done. And then the next day I would go in and kind of come up with lyrics and melody and make a demo, send that in, and then have to wait for the okay. And then I would go and, you know, record everything for real. And that's just sort of how everything went along. It seemed like every single song got recorded twice, once as a demo and once for real.
Nice.
And then actually Master of Disguise, when I got Matt Harvey involved, you know, I said, hey man, I got to write a bunch of these songs. And at the time, I had some other stuff going on. So I was like, hey, can you help me write some of this stuff? So Master of Disguise is actually, Matt wrote pretty much all of it, sends me the demo. I made some significant cuts and changed the pre-chorus and changed a couple of things around, but that song is mostly how Matt Harvey wrote it. So that's actually a Matt Harvey song.
Yeah, it's a cool song.
Thus the very Metallica feel to it. As soon as he sent me the demo, I was like, Metallica much? I love the song too. I think it's got a killer riff, cool chorus. It's a good song.
Yeah, no, it's a cool song. And the album is fun. That's what, you know, like if you are gonna, that's not something about the album. It's a fun record, but it's fun without going into like cheesy territory. I think because it pays homage to the characters, like you said. It wasn't going to be like Cobra rules, like yeah, Joe sucks. That would have been stupid. So it's a cool way of like, because the original cartoon, they were supposed to like to infiltrate the youth of the mind with Cobra. So they're not gonna write stupid lyrics. They're gonna write something to get in their minds.
Well, also think about, you know, I was very aware the G.I. Joe fan base that's even going to know what Cold Slither is, we're all over 40, right? Definitely, because the episode's 40 years old. So you weren't like 2 or 3 when you watched this shit. You were at least 5 years old. So 45 is the minimum age, basically.
It's like 7.
You know, a 45-year-old isn't going to take serious a stupid song. Like, you know, you're not going to, and I'm not going to take it serious. Like the Ballad of Buzzer. Man, those lyrics, while like about a cartoon character, there's some heavy shit in there because I did the research into the character and found out that he was a Cambridge University professor. He went to Australia to kind of document this motorcycle gang, which had the Dreadnoks in it. And he ended up losing his mind and just joining the gang. So there's some psychological problems there. And I just sort of wrote this sort of heavy, deep song about a stupid cartoon. You know, it's just sort of yin and yang. It's based on something it's kind of dumb, but there's some weight and some honesty and some depth to it. At least that's what I try to do the whole time. It's just to write, you know, songs that if you didn't know if you didn't know that this was an album about GI Joe, would you still like it? And that's what I really try to do. Like, just write a good album that happens to be about GI Joe.
Yeah, no, and I think it's good. Yeah, I think you can enjoy it even if you didn't watch the cartoon. So once you have like the albums out, I know it's out. I think July. Is it 25? I know it's after
It's the day after the show.
after the show. Uh, are you planning on doing more shows with this, more albums? Like what do you envision Cold Slither to be?
Well, this is the question that everybody asks. First off and foremost, this is Hasbro's IP. So Hasbro has to be okay with whatever we can't make any decisions. What I hope happens, I hope this record does really well. I hope people like it. I hope a demand is created for a tour. And, I have a good band. We're going to play these songs good. It's going to be a fun show. I hope people see the show and want to see it live. And I would love for Cold Slither to turn into a real band. And if you're Hasbro, every single piece of anything Cold Slither, they get a piece of it monetarily, right? Like, however many copies of that album Raining Phoenix sells, they got to give a piece of it to Hasbro. So if I'm an executive at Hasbro and there's a demand for Cold Slither, I'm going to say, yeah, keep going, write more music. Just yesterday, or the day before yesterday, I wrote another song for this thing that we're doing. And I love it. Like, there's, to me, I could write another album right now. So it really all depends on the public. If people like the record, which I guess then falls on me if I wrote a good album, if the public demands it, there will be more Cold Slither. I hope. That's just what I hope for.
Yeah, no. So I would recommend this, even if you don't like G.I. Joe. If you like fun, like heavy metal, with some different styles in it, I think Cold Slither album is perfect. Obviously, if you watch the cartoon, you're going to obviously have like understand it more if you grew up watching G.I. Joe, most of the people our age did back in the day. Yeah, I watched it religiously every Saturday or Sunday.
Where are you from?
I'm from Puerto Rico.
Okay, yeah, because I kind of wonder, like, what countries outside of the U.S. did G.I. Joe really thrive in? I know it's big in like England, but did G.I. Joe make it to Belgium or France or Germany? Like, I don't know. So I was curious, like, where you're from. Yeah, I could see why I would make it to Puerto Rico because you're right there.
Yeah, we had it. I could watch it in English if I had cable, but I had the Spanish version too, because I prefer the English version. But yeah, we get the two versions for the channels
Okay,
here.
that's cool.
For the G.I. Joe, yeah. So yeah, I watched it religiously on the weekends, and I think G.I. Joe ran. How many years did the show ran for?
I mean, I watched it from '84 to the second season in '86, and then by 1987, I got Rain and Blood from Slayer, and I was just like more into guitar than toys.
Yeah,
girls. Toys weren't going to get you girls. Guitar was going to get you girls. So I just went with that.
Yes, I'm sure no girl was going to look at my spaceship. Yeah, no.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
the guitar was the gateway.
We all watched the 40-year-old version. There's a reason why.
I mean, I'm married now, but like my wife always jokes that I'm married to a 12-year-old because I have a lot of fucking toys. And I collect like 80s skateboard decks, like anything 80s that was cool, I collect.
Yeah, no, the 80s had a lot of flair to it. So
the best.
Yeah. especially with toys and the cartoons. So yeah, I wanna, Gus, thank you for taking some time to chat with me about Cold Slither and music. And also, if you haven't checked out also the latest Gruesome album that you guys just put out like a few weeks ago, I believe.
Last week, or yeah, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I know. I didn't review it, but my friend the Metal Trees did a review from it. But yeah, it's cool that you're very busy, constantly doing.
I'm very grateful. I'm very, very grateful for all the things that I get involved in. So, I'm just happy to be here.
So before I let you go, Gus, anything you like to say to the fans before we go?
I think, again, like, I think because this is associated with a giant corporation, people might be skeptical. Just know that, number one, the guy that even thought of this at the record company is a massive G.I. Joe fan. Like, he's a real G.I. Joe fan. This was all his idea. I am a massive G.I. Joe fan. Like, this music is sincere. I mean, it's such a similar conversation, interestingly enough, to Gruesome. Same thing. We have this beloved thing, which is death, and we're trying to recreate it a little bit or whatever. And there is a lot of sincerity there, it's in Human in particular. It's a very important album. The people that made the album are very important to us. So, there's an honesty there and a sincerity that in a cynical world, I want people to know that if I do a piece of music, me personally, it's coming from an honest place. I don't do bullshit music. That's my one rule. I don't care how much money it involves, which, let's be honest, it's heavy metal. There's not very much. But, if I'm going to do it, it's going to be honest. So that's, Cold Slither came from a real honest and sincere place.
Yeah, I think right now in heavy metal, the only bands that are like seeing like real money is Sleep Token and Ghost. But besides that, I don't think anyone else is seeing that type of...
it's the fun, going back to Gruesome, like, people are like, oh, you guys are cashing in on Chuck's name. And it's like, where's the cash? Like, I'm not, I still have to play guitar tonight in a bar playing Sweet Home Alabama. I still got to work. Like, I'm not a rich rock star. I do this because I love it. That's it.
I think you can tell because like this type of project, you can tell when some bands are like phoning it in, but you can tell there's like a lot of pride and respect to it, that you really love it. Like, it shows. Like, you're very passionate about G.I. Joe. You're very passionate about the music. It shows. You can tell when someone is like, okay, you're just like doing it for like money or stuff and not passionate enough. So yeah, I can tell.
And that's kind of my thing with, like, I think pop music, they're all really well-written songs. The people that sing them are good singers, but it's just so dishonest to me. Somebody else wrote the music. Usually like 5 or 6 people wrote the music, and then a bunch of people write the lyrics, and then this person sings them, and then a computer fixes it all. Like, it's just dishonest to me. And, metal still is one of those genres that there's still a good amount of honesty left. And, I think when people see artificially made album covers, like the AI album covers, the metal community rejects it. Like, metal community still wants honesty. And so back to that point, I want people to know that this Cold Slither record, man, it came from here.
Yeah, no, totally. It's and those AI album covers, they're like a hot topic right now. Yeah, so I agree. I like, there's good artists out there, have real people do the art.
For me, whatever you want to do with your band, but it's more so just like, I'm proud to see that the heavy metal community still rejects bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, as a whole, like, we just don't want bullshit in our scene. And I like that.
Yeah. It's keeping it real.
Keeping it real, man.
So Gus, it's been a pleasure talking with you. So hope the show for Cold Slither goes really well. If you guys download footage, I'd love to see that. The footage of you guys playing in the pool.
I think they're gonna professionally film it, so I think everything will come out eventually.
Awesome. So yeah, so I'll let you go, but Couchers, Cold Slither out July 25th. So if you like metal and you like the show, I'll put the link so you can get the album. So until next time, Couchers, this is Hector, the Shield Dude on a Couch, and I'll see you all right here on the couch. Thank you and goodbye.